Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing. Following the Pledge of Allegiance will be a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Amen.
We have one call-in user that their last two digits on their phone number is 18. Could you identify yourself so we can rename you on the screen, please?
Could be me, Supervisor Schley.
Thank you, Supervisor Sly. And we will have the reading of the notice, please.
The adjourned annual meeting of the Marathon County Board of Supervisors, composed of 38 members, will convene at the Marathon County Courthouse Assembly Room, 500 Forest Street, Wausau, on Tuesday, November 10th, 2020 at 7 p.m., and the agenda was duly signed and posted.
Thank you. And I would like to request everyone please silence their cell phones or put them on mute. We do have someone on the call-in that has still got a lot of static feedback. Thank you. So please put all electronic devices on mute as to not be interruptive of the meeting. And I would thank you for that request. Moving on to roll call, I'd ask the clerk to call the roll.
Beestrom.
Here.
Bizotto.
Here.
Boots. Here. Book.
Here.
Butke.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Seiler.
Here.
Conway.
Here.
Dickinson.
Here.
Drabeck.
Here.
Pfeifrick.
Here.
Fisher.
Here.
Gaber.
Here.
Gibbs.
Here.
Gonering. Guild.
Here.
Gums. Harris.
Here.
Jacobson. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Krause.
Here.
Lamont.
Here.
Longenhan.
Here.
Leahy.
Here.
Lowe.
Here.
Mask.
Here.
McEwen.
Here.
Oberbeck.
Here.
Opal. Robinson.
Here.
Rosenberg. Schley.
Here.
Seefelt.
Here.
Soibert.
Here.
Stark.
Here.
Van Cray.
Here.
Vol.
Here.
Zhang.
Here.
Gonering. Gums. Opal. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to welcome all of the visitors that we have this evening, including our viewing audience. One of the most important things that the Marathon County Board does is to adopt its budget and allocate the resources to the programs in its policy-setting role. So we will move on to item B, education presentation and/or reports. And we have, you should have in the packet a announcement about the program that is going to be run tomorrow, recognizing the veterans on Veterans Day who served this great country. I would also like to extend my sincere appreciation to all of the veterans who work for Marathon County. We have in excess of 86 known veterans that are working as employees of Marathon County, and we also have 7 county board members who have served in a capacity in the service to this country. So my great appreciation to them. If we were holding this a meeting in person, I would ask that you'd stand up and be recognized and thanked by the whole board. So we will do an appreciation, and I thank everyone for all of their service.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Stark.
Supervisor Stark, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention, and that was today. The Veterans Day obviously is November 11th tomorrow. Today happens to be a birthday, however, of one of the armed services, and it happens to be the 245th birthday of the Marine Corps. So happy birthday to the Marine Corps, and thank you to all of those veterans who served in the Marines, at which one of those supervisors happened to be Supervisor Stark. So I would turn it over to Supervisor Stark was requesting to speak, so he's recognized.
All I wanted to do was take the opportunity to acknowledge that as well. Being a Marine, and today is our birthday, so I know the Veterans Day tomorrow. I just wanted to bring that forward to the group as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So again, there will be a contactless drive up for veterans tomorrow, and in that a resource bag that's going to be provided at the 212 River Drive is an American flag mask, hand sanitizer, touch-free tools, glass cleaner, repair kits, pens, a stress ball, toothpaste, along with various agency and business brochures. Again, as just a small token from the Veteran Service Officer Office, and also sponsored by United Healthcare. So I just wanted to make that announcement. If anybody is a veteran that is listening, by all means, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m., please drive to 212 River Drive, and there will be a little token of appreciation for your service. We'll move on then now to item C, consent agenda, items C8 through C12DA. What is your pleasure? Motion by Vice Chair McEwen. Second by Supervisor Rosenberg. Is there any discussion on agenda items C8 through C12DA? Again, last call. Is there any?
Yes,
Question.
Mr. Chair. This is
Supervisor Seiler?
Seiler.
Supervisor
Yes, thank
Seiler is
you. I'm trying to-
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to take a few moments to speak to the resolution recognizing or proclaiming the third Thursday in November Rural Health Day by, first of all, thanking the Health and Human Services Committee for bringing this resolution forward. And I'd like to say that the third whereas captures very well the challenges that rural residents face accessing health care. Uninsured and underinsured are significant issues, And for many, too often, if they have a health insurance, it's catastrophic only, therefore, and with very high deductibles. And too often, they don't seek health care until an issue that may have been preventable now becomes chronic or even life-threatening. Another issue is the alarming trend as reported in the September 19th edition of our WASA pilot with a headline of Seeds of Despair. Isolated and with limited access to mental health care, hundreds are dying by suicide. The study revealed that farmers have a suicide rate on average of 3.5 times higher than general population in the Midwest. The National Farm Medicine Center at Marshfield was one of the contributors to this study. Area Extension Director Jason Hosler notes that Extension is engaging and partnering to address this critical issue. And one great example is a new division of Extension called Resilient Farms, Families, and Businesses Responding to the Stress. The Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection's Farm Center provides a 24/7 farmer wellness hotline that provides support for farmers that are struggling with suicidal issues, thoughts, depression, or anxiety. And their center's podcast covers topics like farm children. They express stress too. So just a few thoughts I wanted to share with you and end with saying that the rural healthcare issues are unique. And thank you again to the Health and Human Services Committee for bringing this resolution forward in support of our rural and agricultural communities. And also thank you to the Board of Health, which also supported this resolution this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the consent agenda items? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. All those in favor of approval of consent agendas items C8 through items C12DA signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And we will move on to resolutions. Item D, Human Resources, Finance and Property Committee, item D13, Budget and Property Tax Levy Resolution, Resolution 65-20. What is your pleasure?
Chairman, I would move for adoption. Supervisor Robinson.
Supervisor Robinson with the motion to approve. And seconded
Supervisor
by
Fisher to
Vice
second.
Chair, the Vice Chair, McEwen, excuse me. Supervisor Robinson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And we covered most of the points last meeting or at the public hearing, and I'd just like to give an update on the budget. Administrator Leonard informed the Human Resources Finance and Property Committee this afternoon that the USDA Farm Services is going to be pulling out of their River Drive location. That is a result of a net loss of $65,000 to the county and the facilities and lands management program. In addition, the administrator has been working on the realignment of the duties associated with tax deeds, and he will be looking at moving the responsibilities from some responsibilities from the treasurer's office and the clerk's office to the corporation counsel's office. Earlier this year, we had approved a .63 position. That position will be held and not filled, evaluating the effectiveness of that move. But hopefully that will allow us to deal with some of the backlog with tax delinquencies and foreclosures and streamline that process. In addition, today we had two different amendments that were on the table. One was withdrawn, dealing with funding for the district attorney's office. The second one failed to advance because of a lack of a second. I'd like to yield to Supervisor Jacobson and or Boots to comment on one of those amendments.
Supervisor Jacobson,
Thank you,
Supervisor
Mr. Chair.
Jacobson recognized.
My amendment was withdrawn. My amendment focused on increasing funding for the district attorney's office. The amendment, if you had a chance to look in the packet at it closer, tried to take an opportunity to draw from several different sources to accumulate funding for the low end of the proposed budget for the district attorney's office. Some of those sources included a slight reduction in the allocation for the body cameras, the outlay for the University program, a slight reduction in the outlay for the broadband program, and also increasing the sales tax projections. After some further discussion with my colleague on the Public Safety Committee, Chairperson Boots, and also in light of some other factors, including the fact that two of those funding sources are one-time funding sources, so we would have to find a way in a future budget to find a more sustainable funding source. Supervisor Boots and I would like to, as part of our role on the Public Safety Committee, spend some more time over the next 6 to 12 months taking a look at how we can have a further discussion on a more systematic approach and a more sustainable funding source. But I do want to stress it's something that I am going to make my top priority going forward on the Public Safety Committee. My background as an attorney myself has a lot of passion behind trying to find some more funding for the DA's office. I don't practice criminal law, but the practice of law in itself is a very stressful, emotional, taxing profession, and particularly in the DA's office, I think it's a sector of our profession that is at the highest stress level and probably one of the least paid. So I am fully committed to making this a top priority going forward, but in light of that fact and the fact that unfortunately the funding sources I identified are just, I was hoping it would spur some more discussion, but they're largely one-time sources, and it would just put us in a tough place next year if we're not prepared. So I want to spend the next year trying to be prepared for that and make this another focus of the budget going forward. So yield to Supervisor Boots for anything he'd like to add.
What I'll do is I'll just read what I brought forward at Finance. I would mirror what Supervisor Jacobson said, but I would also add that we'd like to have, and I'm going to make it my recommendation, we have a answer by June 1. I feel it's important that we actually give a date. I feel that it's always good to have an actual goal, and we need to meet that goal. So June 1 is what I'm looking at, and this is what I brought forward to Finance. I would like to make a request as the chair of the Public Safety Committee. I would ask that supervisor who have put forward amendments relative to justice system funding retract them and give the Public Safety Committee until June 1 to look at solutions to the DA's request. I have talked with Vice Chair of my committee, and we would like to start a collaborative effort between department heads in our criminal justice system. This gets all the players at the table to discuss staffing deficiencies, resource deficiencies, and budget deficiencies. I will then come back with the administrator or administrator appointee to discuss with this committee at that time. We could also amend the budget at that time if warranted. We need these entities to be working together. I have several letters and emails in my possession stating their case for resources. But no one wins by pitting department against department for funds. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on the budget resolution?
This is Supervisor Stark. I request permission to speak.
Supervisor Stark is recognized.
There's a budget amendment that I am proposing that is the last attachment to this packet. And I would like to, as I understand the process, we're allowed to bring forth amendments. That's the process that we go through. And it is recognition that the administrator puts together the budget. He recognizes all of the priorities, and then we as in the finance department and as individual supervisors have the duty and responsibility to review the budget, and if we see areas that we think need to be addressed, that's our opportunity. So as far as the procedure here, do I
You would,
Can I,
you would,
present it, or
Supervisor
do I need
Stark,
to
at
have-
this point, Supervisor Stark, at this point, you would offer your amendment as a motion, and then we will see if there's a second. If there's a second, then we can have debate.
All right, I would offer my budget resolution as a motion at this time.
Is there a second to the motion to amend the budget as the last attachment that was sent out roughly at 5:30 this evening to the packet? Is there a second?
This is Supervisor Mask. I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Supervisor Mask with a second. Now, is there any discussion?
Supervisor Stark, I'd like to discuss a little bit.
Supervisor Stark.
Thank you. I don't know how many of you have had an opportunity to review my budget amendment, but it has to do with moving funds that are in the budget already. And that was part of the process as it was designed, that if we see an area that we think needs to be addressed, that we were provided with a vehicle, which was an amendment. And in that amendment, the goal was not to increase the tax levy. It was not to increase the budget as a whole, but to look for funds in other areas that would be able to be tapped to support any proposed budget amendment so that it comes out dollar-wise budget neutral. And it has been discussed at a number of the prior meetings that the district attorney's office is not fully staffed. And I would point out that a couple of years ago, under Brad Carger, when his administration, when they went to the state, and it's been brought up a number of times that the responsibility for funding district attorney's office is the state's responsibility. A letter was sent by Mr. Carger and endorsed by this board, or the board at the time, to support the district attorney's request for positions. And also, it was in a letter, it was pledged that the county would support any support staff for those positions. And it was on that basis that the legislature and the Madison authorized one addition to the DA's office in the past, and we have not provided that assistant position, even though they relied on it at the state for filling the position request. They didn't get all that they wanted, but they got something. We as a whole, though, the district attorney's office, as we know from prior presentations, that they are understaffed. So what, in my amendment, I propose taking funding from the SSTOP program, which amounts to $118,000, which is in the district, in the administrator's budget. It's already in there. And previously it was pointed out that there has been, since 1998, there has been no review of the efficacy or value of reducing the recidivism rate in those people that are going through that program. And no studies have been done to support it. And nobody has asked for that. That's been discussed but never really acted upon. And so recently, the district attorney did a review, since no one else has, and determined that it was not really reducing recidivism. And as such, the district attorney's office is no longer going to support that in their plea agreements. And as a result, there's basically $118,000 remaining in the budget right now, in the administrator's budget, that could be tapped to provide this position money towards the position of the district attorney and also towards the legal assistant. And while it's not the total amount was $177,935, which was from the position requests that were identified in the original budget by the administrator, and they were not funded. The remaining $59,935 is, I propose that it be taken from the Start Right program, which has a budget of $1.7 million, of which $1,200,000 is funded by the county. And in fact, it was in the administrator's plan and last year that there was supposed to be an evaluation of the Start Right program, which has not been accomplished. And yet we know that there was a position that was not filled, there was a position that was reduced because the person quit and they didn't fill that position. So again, it kind of speaks to the whole program didn't collapse with the loss of one person. And I question whether or not the whole system would collapse if we diverted $59,935 so that we could fund these two positions from those two accounts. And as a whole, I don't think that there's any reasonable basis not to fill those positions. And so I guess unless anybody has any questions or comments, that's my motion and the basis for my motion. And I just feel that it's long overdue, and our failure to fund those positions in the long term will result in, I think, deficits to the community, to the safety and health and wellness. And, we know that currently the body cams have been approved in the budget, and there are other things that are going to be occurring during the course of time, another judge. All of these things are going to add to the overtaxed, overburdened DA's office on top of what they already have. So I think now is the time, rather than waiting 6 months to a year, to try and decide whether or not it's necessary, when I think the facts and the data speaks for itself. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Supervisor Seibert.
Supervisor Seibert.
He said it was 1.7 million in the Start Right. In the proposal that we received late, it says 1.2. Which is it, 1.2 or 1.7?
1.7 is the total program. 1.2 is the county levy portion. The other is drawn down from other grant funding sources and nonprofits.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Robinson.
Lamont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, the numbers are 1.6 million approximately for the program, with 1.13 coming from the levy. Let me just say that I support the efforts outlined by Supervisor Boots and Jacobson to do a thorough evaluation of our criminal justice system. There is a need for us to set priorities, but those priorities reach beyond just the DA's office and look at issues such as what are our needs in the Sheriff's Department. I've heard from many in law enforcement about the critical need for additional dispatchers. This motion places that the ADAs and the support staff ahead of any other department request in that area without being prioritized in the context of overall needs. The other concern that I have is the district attorneys are a statewide responsibility or state responsibility. We have the ability to provide the support for them, but they are state employees. And this is in essence, they're failing to provide adequate funding results in a shift of the cost to the local level. In lieu of levy limits, it's difficult for us to deal with that. I would like to specifically address the Start Rate program, and I would encourage you to look at the administrator's budget And the fact that we've got a number of programs, First Steps with public health nurses working with families and newborns, Step by Step, which is administered through the Children's Hospital, where they go out and do visits with homes and work with parents on child development, early learning, and healthy lifestyles, and trying to avoid adverse childhood experiences. And then there's a Stepping Up program where we work with financial or with family resource centers to provide support for those families. But there is a lot of value to the Start Right program in that early intervention. Corey Norbaum, who's a member of our Board of Health today, pointed out that the Federal Reserve out of Minneapolis has done a lot of research on this, and they point out that investments in early childhood expenditures have a lifelong benefit in terms of building resiliency, in developing proper development and education, and working with the family. And there is a payback on that. This year we didn't, because of COVID, get into the detailed evaluation. I would hope that we would do that next year. I look forward to doing that, and whether it's through the county WIPs or through the university grant program, I think it's appropriate that all programs be evaluated. But now is not the time for us to take away support for families in a critical time when there are more pressures than ever on those families, and this program is more needed. In addition, the nurses in the Start Right program this year gave us the ability to flex their workload and work on the pandemic. And we were able to recoup some of their costs through some of the federal grants. That capacity may be gone next year, and the pandemic will not be. We will need potentially to shift some of the nurses from the Start Right program into the COVID response in the county, and this affords us that flexibility. Not to say that the Start Right program is not important, but that we have some very critical needs in the county. So I would encourage you to reject this amendment and support the efforts of Supervisor Boots and Jacobson.
Any other discussion?
Supervisor Mask,
My hand's been up.
Okay, Supervisor Lamont.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question. First of all, I sit on the Public Safety Committee, and if we could have, for everybody's sake, someone explain the f-stop. But then secondly, we need to compare what other counties are doing that have similar, and their caseloads, to compare if this is really something that is a dire need as stated.
What's that?
So can someone explain, please, the f-stop?
I'll have the administrator try to address f-stop.
Supervisor Lamont,
Thank you.
the SDOP program stands for the Safe Street Options Program. And in a simplistic overview, it is a program designed for individuals that are charged with operating while intoxicated offenses, and it incentivizes those individuals to pursue pre-plea treatment, I should say pre-plea assessment and treatment for their underlying substance abuse issues. And it does that through, again, incentivizing them to do that through a reduction in the jail term that they would serve in accordance with their ultimate conviction. My understanding, and I don't know if our Justice Systems Coordinator is on the call this evening, but my understanding is that there are a number of counties that operate similar programs throughout the state.
Thank you. And I was at the public safety meeting where that was explained, and I thought that they said the recidivism rate was actually very good. The program was working.
I think that's the question that Supervisor Boots and District Attorney Whetstone have both expressed, whether or not the system is working.
I believe,
May I speak?
I
Supervisor
believe
Stark?
that at this point, Supervisor Boots and Supervisor Jacobson is actually asking this board to be able to have the opportunity to do the review. There is letters of support that are, supporting the program. There is questions that have been raised as to the success of the program and the evaluation criteria of the program. So I, as the chairman and serve on the finance committee, do support the next 6 months to have all of the parties in the room and discuss the opportunities and challenges of each department so that we can go through and as a board prioritize the appropriate allocation of resources. If there's opportunities to reallocate resources, that be the case. They reallocated to where the number one priority is. At this point, we have not identified through a systematic evaluation as to where the number one priority is. This board sat here little better than 1 year ago and gave direction to administration and said that the number one priority, because of the feedback that we as a board heard from all of the police chiefs and the sheriff, that dispatch was ultimately critical to the safety of our public safety officers. And so my support is for an actual total understanding of where those priorities need to be and where those resources need to be allocated, and an understanding of where the pinch points are. So I would support a rejection of the amendment and a support of the process that's been laid out by Supervisor Boots and Supervisor Jacobson, because it's always the ability of this board to amend its budget. And we've already heard where we're $65,000 less revenue, and that was not part of this budget makeup. So with that, I have 2 additional people that have requested to speak that I have identified, Supervisor Dickinson and then Supervisor Harris. Supervisor Dickinson's next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to support this resolution. Just make a couple quick brief comments on that. It does seem like, yeah, we had a tough year with COVID and everything, but there was a commitment made last year in November to do this review, to step through this process. You had just mentioned that we all, sat there last year, and unfortunately I wasn't there, wasn't elected. But it seems like it was a failure of us to follow through. And I don't think that just kind of passing that on another 6 months is, really the appropriate thing to do. Second comment is there are critical needs everywhere. We all know that. We can look at that, and we can look at the Start Right program in this case and say we had nurses not doing the job we hired them to do. And that was to address the Start Right program. Actually, what they were doing was addressing COVID because of critical need. And that's fine. But I think it does identify the fact that maybe there's other staff that can carry out that program and maybe at a cheaper cost. And so I do support the resolution. Thank you.
Supervisor Harris.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to say I echo a lot of the same comments and support the chairman's comments on this. I think we don't need to be cutting things until we know the full impact of them. Also think, given that there is now put forth by Supervisor Boots and Jacobson a process to look at this and put all the right people at the table to discuss this, I think we ought to let the process go forward. There is tremendous impact on these programs. Start Right is a tremendous program. I support that in terms of the job that nurses do. They do an excellent job. And in terms of the other program, there have been studies, other counties have done studies on the STOP program. Outgamey did a study in 2017 and found that it had a 31% reduction in the total OWIs. So I think before, I think we really need to look at the impact of making these cuts. I'm all for looking at whether programs that we currently have are effective. There could be cuts, but I don't think we do that by just bringing up an amendment right on the spot without having some time spending looking at those programs and the impacts on the people that they affect. I think the best method forward is to let the process move forward, let the Public Safety Committee do its job. I do support obviously doing something in terms of the District Attorney's Office, but there are a lot of priorities. The dispatcher, I do remember being here as someone in the audience and that being a priority as well. I think we need to do both, but I think we need to follow a process that looks at the impact on the budget and figure out solutions and allow the people that are in charge of that process to work through it. Thank you. And I do not support this amendment.
Thank you.
Board Chair, I ask to speak.
Who is this, please?
Supervisor Krause, I ask for permission to speak.
Supervisor Krause is recognized.
I am on the Health and Human Services Committee, and we've had Joan Thurs speak to our group many times, our committee many times, about the Start Right program. And from my understanding, it does not help very many individuals, several hundred at most, whereas I think adding one or two people to the district attorney's office would probably help thousands and thousands of people. And my other mention is that the application, I've never seen the application for the Start Right program. Their criteria for selecting women to serve and their child. Other than that, they're low income, possibly drug addicts, possibly depressed, or possibly alcoholics. And I've never seen that application that they choose, how they choose the people to serve, whether these women have no father in the home, whether they're divorced, separated, or what the situation is. And I think it would be a much better program if we had something where women were able to use birth control and use that instead of becoming pregnant and a burden on the county or state. And then also, I also wanted to mention that the district attorney's office has had this problem ongoing for years, and it's built and built and built. And as far as the SSTOP program, we have taverns and bars now that are being nearly closed or, limited how many people can attend. So I don't think that drinking and driving will be as much of a problem this coming year. In fact, maybe the COVID might have a good impact on some of these people, and they won't have money to buy alcohol, and they won't have money to go to taverns or can't go to taverns to drink. So I guess those are the points I'd like to bring up, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I've had my hand up, Stark.
Supervisor Stark is recognized for the second time.
Thank you, sir. Two things. One, it was raised, I think, by Supervisor Lamont about the question about other counties and what are they doing. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that there are other counties who have had a shortfall in their district attorney's office, and they have not received the funding from the state, like we also share in that, not getting everything we're needing. And those counties, some of them have as many as 4 district attorneys that are funded through their county as county district attorneys that are staffed as county staff, not as state staff. And we could do that, but that would actually cost more money than what I'm proposing. And the last thing I would ask is there a number of questions that, quite frankly, the district attorney is present. She could answer a couple of them if we would permit her a brief opportunity to address a couple of those questions.
Is there any objection to the district attorney addressing the board? Is there any objection? Is there any objection? I can't tell. I've got several people got their hand up. I have next in line Supervisor Butke, Van Cray, and Robinson. But I would invite the district attorney to the microphone.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I guess I want to address the specific question raised by Supervisor Lamont. So as far as STOP is concerned, it is directed at OWI second and third offenders. And what it does is it's facilitated by the district attorney's office. Is that loud enough? Okay, thank you. So it's facilitated by the district attorney's office in pre-plea offer, meaning there's been no conviction yet. So it's part of the pretrial negotiations, something that actually a judge can't get involved in. And the offer, if the individual agrees, and it has to be, they are in agreement to do it, it's voluntary. If they agree to participate in the program, then they will go get a driver safety assessment, if they agree to do that. And from there, from that assessment, it's determined whether or not they need education, because many second and third offenders may not need additional treatment, or a fuller assessment and follow through. If they need a fuller assessment and follow through, then if they have at least 2 sessions of that, then they get a significant reduction in their jail time. Those jail time offers are part of a judicial guideline that is established by the courts as to the amount of jail time for particular OWI offenses. So because we don't know if they're actually going to follow through with a driver safety plan, which was their original assessment, to complete that plan, which is necessary for all OWI offenders to get their license back. Whether or not you're in the STOP program or not, you have to get this driver safety assessment to get your license back. So then that person would be followed up on to see if they completed their driver safety assessment, driver safety plan, and if so, then there's a review after conviction facilitated by the DA's office where that jail time will either be not have to be served at all at that point because they did what they're supposed to, or it would be lifted. The problem with calculating this, and I understand that there was a study, I'm familiar, I appreciate Supervisor Harris bringing up a study from Outagamie County, and that was very specific to what Outagamie County has done. So when I evaluated the resources that our office is expending in a program like this, because it certainly is non-mandatory, it is something that our prosecutors are spending their resources on that's not core to the prosecution, I looked at whether or not in Marathon County, it has resulted in a reduction of recidivism of OWI, seconds to thirds, thirds to fourths, and whether or not people are still operating without a valid license, operating after revocation, which is a crime. So in order to complete this program, you do not have to get a valid driver's license. You have to comply with the driver safety plan. There are a number of impediments to getting a valid driver's license, such as your SR22 insurance, maybe other fines that you have, things that are beyond our control. So this does not result in getting validly licensed. Therefore, there needs to be data to support the fact that this is actually resulting in people getting validly licensed so they don't come back with operating after revocation. We have not seen a reduction in our operating after revocation offenses. So operating while intoxicated offenses, also whether or not this program really reduces, this is for education, I guess. For OWI first, there's a higher volume of people. Second, it gets less. Third, it gets less. Fourth, it gets less. Fifth, it gets less, naturally, without any programming. That's just kind of the natural flow. So the question is, does this program and participation in it, in something that these OWI offenders would have to do anyway to get their license back in any event, does participation in this program actually reduce the number of repeat OWI offenders? And there is no data to support either one of those outcomes. Supervisor Lamont talked about, there were two things talked about at public safety. Another was OWI court, and I think the recidivism rates that he was addressing were about OWI court and not about SSTOP. Administrator Leonard is, it's his budget line that SSTOP is under. It's under his supervision. He's been part of the conversations. We have been looking into this ever since the last budget period, because it's beholden upon the district attorney to make sure we are allocating resources in a responsible way, given that we don't have the adequate resources. And I believe Supervisor Leonard would agree that there were about 5 outcome measure points, and there has been no data gathered in Marathon County on those outcome measure points to say that they have been met in the last 16 years. So that's a little bit of background. I hope that gives you some information. And I should point out, we did stop offering that program as of November 4th, as a result of all of these meetings and meeting with Laura Yari, who's our Justice Systems Coordinator, meeting with Attic Correctional Services, who facilitates the program, the nonprofit that receives the funding. And we did stop offering that program, so it is no longer a part of our plea offers. And therefore, I don't know of any way that it would continue. And therefore, if there is a support for the program, it's my opinion that it's not based on data. It's based on an idea that it is good to help offenders. It is good to help them through a process. But as far as data is concerned, I do not believe there's any to support that it has met the outcome measures.
Supervisor Butke is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to address the part of the proposed amendment dealing with StartRight. Little history, StartRight began in 1994 as a pilot and expanded countywide in 1999 to limit the costs associated with child abuse and neglect. Evidence-based programs like StartRight are shown to improve birth outcomes and reduce child abuse and neglect. The program is carried out in partnership with Children's Hospital of Wisconsin Community Services. Now, in the past decade, we have learned that long-term impacts of adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs, contribute a lot to STDs, teen pregnancy, alcohol and drug dependency, mental health programs, and chronic diseases. StartRight investments today reduce future expenditures of county resources in the out-of-home placements, criminal justice system, and drug and alcohol treatment. So the bottom line is that StartRight investment is an investment in the future that we make today. And especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, taking funds away from needy parents is probably not an appropriate measure for our board to take at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Supervisor Van Cray is next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to speak briefly in support of the SSTOP program. I find that it is a very important program that is serving over 60 clients right now today in our county to help them get into treatment, reduce their jail time, reduce their fines. And if we take a look back at the administrator's message, we talk about reducing jail time and reducing people in the jail as a great source of saving our county money. So I think investing in this program, if we're looking at it from that regard, is a smart investment. I also agree that looking at our programs and the outcomes that they have is important when it comes to the budget season. But I don't think that 4 days before we're voting on the budget is the time to do that. I agree with Supervisor Jacobson and Boots that taking a serious look at things before the next budget season will help us have a better budget for next year. But again, not 4 days before the budget is due, and when none of the supervisors have seen the data that the district attorney is referencing, it makes it difficult for us to make a decision. So I will not be supporting this amendment, and thank you for your time.
Supervisor Lamont has his hands raised. Supervisor Lamont is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with what Michelle just said, and wanted to say that I thank the district attorney for explaining that better. And I was thinking about the OWI court, so I was confused between those two. But I do think that while maybe I might support one of these, I might not support the other one, the money coming from the other one. So this is at the last second, and it's too hard to really come to a conclusion right now, I think, in a fair way. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment? Any other discussion on the amendment? All right, we will proceed to vote, and I'll have the clerk call the roll. A aye is in support of the amendment, and the amendment is to take $118,000 from the S-STOP program, and the remainder of the allocation for $177,000 is going to be coming from Head Start. A aye supports that amendment. A no or nay does not. And I will have the clerk call the roll.
Beestrom.
Nay.
Bizotto.
Nay.
Boots. Book.
A.
Can you repeat that, Supervisor Book?
Aye.
Thank you. Butke.
No.
Christensen.
No.
Seiler.
No.
Conway.
No.
Dickinson.
Yes.
Draybeck.
No.
Pfeifrick.
No.
Fisher.
No.
Gaber.
No.
Gibbs.
No.
Gonering. Guild.
No.
Gums.
Yes.
Harris.
No.
Jacobson. Johnson.
No.
Krause.
Aye.
Lamont.
No.
Longenhan.
No.
Leahy.
No.
Lowe.
No.
Mask.
Yes.
McEwen.
No.
Oberbeck.
No.
Opal. Robinson.
No.
Rosenberg.
No.
Schley.
Aye.
Seefelt.
No.
Soybert.
Yes.
Stark.
Yes.
Van Cray.
No.
Vol.
No.
Zhang.
No.
Opal. Gonering. Thank you.
And the motion is defeated. Moving on to the budget as presented. Any other discussion on the budget? Any other discussion on the budget? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the budget and the property tax levy resolution, Resolution R-65-20, signify support by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to the budget, opposed to the resolution, signify by saying aye. The motion is carried unanimous. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you to all that have put efforts into this budget. Again, this is the most critical policy document that this board takes up. And I think the efforts by the administrator, by the staff, and by the finance department is second to none, especially in this environment of COVID. And we will move on to item E, Environmental Resources Committee and Forestry and Recreation Committee. Item E14, the Marathon County Forest Comprehensive Land Use Plan, Resolution 66-20. What is your pleasure?
Supervisor Seefeld makes the motion.
Supervisor Seefeld with a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Boots. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the Marathon County Forest Comprehensive Land Use Plan, Resolution 66-20, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And we'll move on to Infrastructure Committee, item F15, authorizing the support broadband grant application to the Public Service Commission, Resolution 69-20. Motion by Supervisor Boots and second by Vice Chair McEwen. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Okay, I don't see any requests to speak and nobody's hands raised, so I'm assuming we are ready to vote. We will proceed to vote on Resolution 69-20, authorizing the support of broadband grant applications to the Public Service Commission, PSC. Resolution 69-20. All those in favor of that resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. Announcements and/or requests. I have several announcements. First, yesterday was the first day that in conjunction with a contractor, the UWSP Stevens Point campus at the field house now has a COVID-19 rapid testing, and that I participated in that test yesterday, and if you go through the swab, you'll have it's the antigen test, and you will have a result from that antigen test within 15 minutes. If the result comes back clearly negative, it's negative. If it comes back undecisive or potentially positive, you are then referred to potentially have the PCR test and recommendations are as of such. The opportunity here is to identify potential individuals that are asymptomatic, have no symptoms, and yet are out and about and continuing to potentially spread this disease. So I think it's a great opportunity. You do have to sign up to get the test. There's no cost to anyone, though the days that they have testing is Mondays and Thursdays. Again, it is a great opportunity, and it's held at the UWSP Marathon Campus Fieldhouse. The other announcement that I do have is I sent out to the executive committee. I had Tasha from the administration's office send out a doodle poll. The executive committee has 2 issues that it needs to take up. I'm trying to schedule an executive committee for either Thursday, November 12th, or Tuesday, November 17th, both at 4 o'clock. Please, executive committee members, if you would, please respond to that poll so we can schedule that meeting. And then last but not least, I do have the clerk has a request for signatures by county board members. Those who are present, please take a moment out of your time before you leave and sign the resolution. Is there any other announcements?
Yes, this is Supervisor Mask.
Supervisor Mask is recognized.
Thank you. On Saturday, December 5th, Man of Honor Society will be holding their annual ham giveaway. Because of COVID, we cannot have it at our clubhouse. So there will be a drive-through, and veterans must have their DD 214 or other proper military ID available. And there'll be 3 lanes going through the midway portion of Marathon Park, and get your free ham. And that's Saturday, December 5th, and it starts promptly at 9 a.m. And the hams go very fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Seeing none, again, I would like to wish all of the veterans a happy Veterans Day and congratulations and a thank you for your service. And now we are down to item number G, 17, a motion to adjourn. And the motion is by Supervisor Jacobson and seconded by Supervisor Rosenberg. Is there any discussion on the motion to adjourn? All those in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. We stand adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and congratulations. We have a budget for 2021.